back and or to the channel, Trucker Ride and the S.E.E channel. And I have my assistant's going to be in on the stream today as the big beautiful bill had gotten signed by President Trump last Friday, July 4th. So therefore, um, uh, one of the things in there that does affect or at least grabs my attention, I'm just making sure my stuff is in, is the no tax and overtime. And before we get started, are you there, Laura?
I'm here.
Hold on. My headset's on. You're through my headset.
I'm here.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can now. Okay,
All
my
right.
headset was on, so you're funneling through the Bluetooth. Um, so before we get started, folks, if you could like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Welcome to all the new subscribers this past week, and just help the channel grow. And everything you do kind of helps push us out in the algorithm to be shared more and be pushed by YouTube. So, a little content here is the job I'm at, and I took a 2-year sabbatical to work at another company and come back to this job I'm at. So I've got almost not, I got 9 years in here basically, 2 years at another company. But that all said, both companies, I've been paid by the hour. Hourly rate, overtime after 40, on top of other perks and bonuses at both different companies. This company and Ryder Truck Rental when I was there working. So, so for the last 11 years, my income has been solely on out here on the road as an hourly employee and not cents per mile, and definitely not by the percentage of the load, any jazz like that. You know, no detention time. That's the thing. When I'm bumped in a dock and I get hung up, if I'm broke down, if I'm stuck in the construction, accident, adverse weather, which has happened several times. I think the one time we can relate is I got stuck in the Appalachian Mountains during a flash flood, and that took me a few hours to maneuver, actually get out and do a bypass around. And another time, of course, low bridge that took me a 3-hour bypass around to get to a town in the Appalachians. So hourly rate does help where, when needed. Um, so that said, I asked my wife, my assistant, what is entailed in that bill on this? What are we looking at? What's a timeline to when this is going to take effect? So she started digging into it over the weekend and then more today. And I said, let's talk about this together. I haven't had time to dig into it. I'm a busy man. She does usually the front end of the work. I'm the mad scientist doing the leg work on the back end. So, Laura, so no uh, tax on overtime. Let's start with the basic and work our way. You there? Shoot, I hope you didn't get put into my Bluetooth on the radio. Can you hear me? Let me turn the Bluetooth completely off. All right, how about that? I had you. When I turned the Bluetooth off, you were coming through the phone. Are you there? I do not hear anything from you. Let's see. Free touch.
Can you hear me?
Okay, there you are. All right, Laura, you're
Okay.
there.
When I go
Okay,
to my notes, I disconnect just from sound. So darn it.
okay.
So
All right.
basically
So
the
let's start with the basics with everyone and work our way up to the more sophisticated portions of this.
Okay, so basically, if you are an hourly employee currently and you're getting paid by your employer already, overtime, you will qualify to get um, the overtime thing from the big beautiful bill that they're doing right now. You'll be able to do your tax deduction at the end of the year with the IRS and be able to take advantage of that overtime
Okay.
exemption. So,
With that, there is exempt and non exempt. A little bit backstory on that we had talked about.
so basically, when you're a non-exempt employee with the Fair Standards Labor Act, um, when you're a non-exempt employee, you're basically an hourly employee that is it's basically like your administrative assistants, your just regular blue collar people that get paid overtime after your 40 hours. Your
Kind of like your
exempt,
factory workers and stuff like that.
yeah, your exempt employees are your people that are, um, don't get, they're your salaried employees, like your managerial level people, that don't get overtime. So
Okay.
that's the
And
breakdown of those.
all right. And then and it got brought up a few times, but FLSA is the Fair Labor.
Fair Labor Standard Act.
Okay. And how does
And
that
so
play?
currently the truckers are there's a law came into play that truckers are exempt from that. So that's how come truckers are currently not getting overtime pay. So the only reason that any truckers currently are getting overtime is all because their employers are voluntarily paying that to them. So it's all on a volunteer basis that employers are giving truckers any kind of overtime pay.
And I've seen that with, and I had discussed that before. I was once hired by Estes, but I declined the job after I came back and talked with these folks. Estes, and and I'll bring them up, but there's a lot of LTL, local and line haul work through those companies, and there's many of them out there. They pay by the hour, but they have different ways they can manipulate and push and pull that. The biggest thing that was told to me was you don't get overtime till after 50. You've hit the 55-hour mark, so you're going to work 55 straight hours, and then past that you will get overtime. But that's like in the LTL area. Now, some trucking companies, say your mom pop um, dump truck hauling companies, they will pay by the hour or they'll pay you by the day or the job. But garbage, I worked 8.5 years in with waste management and other private garbage hauling companies from the late '80s into the mid late '90s. That was all by the hour and overtime after 40. And basically, what I've been getting here is straight time on 40, overtime after 40. But this company, we only work Monday through Friday, or I want to say our business of operation is Monday through Friday. We are not open on Saturday and Sundays conducting business. I travel on Sundays because of it takes me about 10 plus hours to get to my first stop. Therefore, we don't qualify for the 70-hour rule. We are flying on the 60-hour rule here. So that said, um, you had brought up that all right, there's the no tax and overtime in the big beautiful bill, but there is a second leg to that, and that's what you found today. So can you describe that a little more in depth? Are you there?
Yep.
Okay. Did you want to? I just asked if you wanted to explain a little more in depth of that second leg of that other bill that needs to go through.
Yeah, there's one called the GOT Truckers Act. It's the Guaranteed Overtime for Truckers, and that was just pushed back through in March of this year that they are trying to get passed, which is part of the Fair Labor Standards Act, that would make it so that truckers would get overtime once again.
And who in what state, which surprised me when you said it, but who in what state they represent is on the front line pushing that.
Right now it's Alex Padilla out of California, but there's like three others. But he was the top one that showed up in my search.
And it's funny when you said that because California is like they're trying to do everything to knock the trucking industry down and push it back into the Stone Ages. And it was surprising that and what was this? A representative, Congress, senator,
Congress.
congressman out of California pushing for the GOT, which is a guaranteed overtime for truck drivers. So that leg of the bill would then put mandatory overtime like into the trucking realm, which never was because of the FLSA. And so that would now going back the no tax and overtime that would be this year now for everyone else like that's working factory jobs. So how does that play out then? You kind of touched on that at the beginning, but it starts now and it goes till when and how do you claim it?
It starts in for 2025 tax year, and it goes through the tax year of 2028. So it's for Trump's entire presidency. So it's 4 years in total. And you basically, it does not appear on your check, your paycheck. So your paycheck's going to look the exact same. It's part of your federal IRS taxes that you put in at the end of the year.
your
So
federal
it's
your
a
federal filings you would do the file.
yes,
So
yes.
for us, if that GOT bill goes through and then we get to be on board, which right now I'm kind of on the fence in a way that I may be able to claim it, but basically if you have a good tax accountant that knows about this stuff, they're going to know that you're definitely going to need to have your at least information of the overtime that you worked for 2025 hour wise
And
and what rate.
there's specific rules salary wise too. So if you're a single filer, um, there's you have to salary wise, it's single filers, I believe it's a cap. You can only claim up to $12,500 filing single, and then for married filing jointly, you can claim up to $25,000. And for the salary, I want to say for single, again, individual filers, you can make up to $150,000. And then for married filers, you can make up to $300,000. And then anything over that, then they start taking like percentages off of what you can deduct or
Okay,
claim. So from
basically
there,
you
they
would
just take
you would yeah, you would fall into like a tax
certain
percentage that,
brackets. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
kind of like you are with your 40 hours, whether you're falling in the 12, the 20, 22. Just
Yep.
depends on how much you make. Where because for us each year and in the 11, 12 years, I've moved it into probably three different tax brackets. So, as soon as you think you're making more money, you just bump into another tax bracket and it's like you're kind of washing out on it. But that's basically what I wanted to get through because it's kind of been a little bit of a buzz, but a lot of guys out here, they're getting paid by the miles, cents per mile, or percentage of the load. A lot of flatbedders get percentage of the load. And so, what this may help with the GOT and the congressman out of California, his name again was.
Alex Padilla.
Okay. So just so you folks heard it, that you can look him up, but um, basically that would help the trucker side of over no tax on overtime, um, for the most part, and we can only hope that that gets pushed through. Now, the one thing you and I talked about, and which seemed to have some rhetoric out there, was the mega carriers, the ATA pushing back on this. That is, all the big corporations, mega carriers that run the ATA.
There's one more tax bill that I found just before we came live, um, that they're trying to push through for truckers. It's called Strengthening Through Supply Chain something or other. I can't get to my notes again without cutting my volume. Um, it is a incentive for truckers if you are, I want to say, if you've been into trucking for a while and you drive so many hours per year, it's a $7,000 tax credit. And if you're new to the industry and are either enrolled in as a new truck driver and have so many hours in of driving, it's like a $10,000 tax credit. So they're really trying to give incentives to truckers because they still think what they're calling as a driver shortage, but when you look into it more, it's more about retention and trying to keep the good drivers
Yep.
on. So they're really trying to, at least this administration is trying to do what they can to get drivers in, good drivers, and keep them. And they're hoping that that will then entail turnaround and possibly,
Keep retention.
well, keep the retention, but also maybe drop the price of goods, since
Okay.
they don't have the constant turnaround and things like that. So
Let me pause for a minute. Hey, folks, can you hear Miss Laura? Okay. Can someone comment in the chat if you can hear her? I mean, I am on my end. I just want to make sure you're not staring at me because I'm not speaking a lot. I'm letting her. She has done a lot of this research analysis stuff when she lived in Seattle. So this is, like I said, these are things that she gets really good at. So just comment if you can hear her through this live stream. Okay, just a thumbs up or yes or something. That would be appreciative. Um, so that and like I said, the ATA. There was a little bit of rhetoric you saw with the ATA, which is comprised of the big mega carriers like your JB Hunt, Snyder, Swift, you know, people that are more for the big corporation profit and not so much for the drivers. As like the OOIDA and the new entity that came out, the Truckers United, that were the big push for the English language proficiencies. They were on board with Oklahoma and Arkansas with that. So a little. Did you catch a little bit of that through your findings and readings?
they were against the the GOT, the overtime,
Guaranteed.
the
Yep. Yep.
guaranteed overtime for truckers, because they said it was going to be a big deal for restructuring pay and that it would cause them having to lay off drivers and that kind of thing. But they were for the newest one out that I just mentioned, um, I already forgot the name of it, the restructuring to give the tax credits to the truck drivers.
Well, of
So they were
course they
actually
have
for
to.
that one because that
Well,
probably doesn't come out of their pocket.
someone like Swift, JB Hunter, Snyder, they're the big proponents to suppress. They want to keep freight rates down. They want to. I don't want to say freight rates, but they want to do cheap labor and bare bone trucks and run these guys to the max of their clock, keep them out as long as they can. I mean, it's just I would never touch a mega carrier with. I would quit driving if that was my choice. I wouldn't touch those guys because I wouldn't last till lunch without me saying my piece and putting them in their place. Um, the small companies, that your owner operators to, your small carriers, those are the ones we need to be out here supporting. And I'm glad to see, and I really am. If we could, as individuals, vote for that GOT, I would do it. Anything that would suppress more of the ATA into the, to the, kick them out of the back of the car and just let trucking be trucking and quit letting these mega carriers dictate their big corporation, muscle around to have everything leveraged. And they're the ones that send the most money for lobbyists to persuade Congress and Senate to go the way they need to. ATA is also manipulating and running the FMCSA board. So, it's just definitely, and I think Trump and Sean Duffy really put ATA in their place this time around, that we need to have good drivers out here. So each
Both
time
of
in a
those
life
should
here,
be passed, actually. Both of them would be good for trucking, but you know, the the bill that was just passed, the big beautiful bill that, you know, the big corporations, the big trucking companies are getting the most kickbacks, should I say, from that. They're getting the most um
right?
they're getting
They're,
the biggest
they-
incentives from that.
they're getting, what is that? They're able to write off like 100% depreciation, and whether, I think a lot of it's on equipment, trailers and trucks.
Yes.
That's their biggest investment. But they're the ones always getting the big tax breaks and everything for leverage their way. And and it's the little guys out here. Like I'm with a 5 truck fleet with 2 box trucks, so 5 tractor trailers and 2 box trucks. We're not talking about a company that is running 6, 8, 10,000 trucks out here, and just it's crazy. But I definitely wanted to say, and I want to say thank you to oh, I'm trying to read that.
Silos.
Silos. Hey, can you hear Miss Laura okay on the live stream here? Can you give me a thumbs up or a yes? Appreciate you dropping in the live. She's going over. She's done a couple days worth of digging into the big beautiful bill and a lot of the other stuff as we recap here. On the overtime, um, no tax on overtime, and how it's going to help affect truck drivers, and then there's more moving parts to this yet to come. But they got to get it done this year. That way, we can at least take advantage of the 2025 tax season when we go to file next year. And so basically, whatever you pay in taxes on overtime for 2025, your tax accountant, make sure you got a good tax accountant that understands and knows that if you qualify, and there are going to be trucking companies out there that you will qualify with. I'm on the fence, but left to be seen. But this company has been around. It's not like we're a new company. The company I'm with has been around since, when I read the bio, it was like 1961 or something. So we've always paid like this. I don't think they've ever had any other type of pay structure in its history. So I would be 99% sure that, I'll be able to qualify for it. But there's going to be a lot of companies on the fence, and it's going to be a lot of the ones I'm questioning, like we talked earlier, was the LTL companies um, that, do the freight and local freight and line haul. So that's where, yeah, it's going to have, and I really think the restructuring of many companies' pays need to happen. It's a circus out here. When you got to look at, if you do certain hauling, um, whether it's tanker, flatbed, you could be on a percentage of it. Uh, Dry van and reefer, your cents per mile. But with reefer, you're spending so much time in the docks. That's the one drawback of hauling reefer is you can spend 2 hours, 6 or 12 hours in a dock, either getting loaded or unloaded, and then getting your broker or your carrier to get you your detention pay by leaning on either the shipper or receiver to pay the detention pay, once you've surrendered your first hour or two. And, we're fighting tooth and nail. And that's why they say truck drivers are making a minimum wage, because we're giving up so much time out here on the road and so much time away from home and our families. So I really want to see a lot of this go in favor, of the trucking industry's way, because yes, like you said, retention, they need to do more incentives and programs that is going to attract drivers, maybe bring some old drivers back out in the industry are seasoned and experienced, but keep the retention rate, because they're getting compensated better than average. We need to be up top. It's a crying shame. You're out here and you're putting in the miles. You got to go through random drug tests. You got to go through a medical screening every 2 years. I've got my hazmat, my TWIC, so I've got to do fingerprints, background checks every 4 years. Um, I've got to drop clean on random drug tests. Let alone I've always got to do a drug and alcohol test every time I do my medical card. So why don't doctors and nurses have to do that? They're taking care of human beings. Wouldn't we want that? So I just think we're held at a high standard for piss poor pay, and then you got these white collar professional jobs. You could go in, snorting a line of coke and smoking some joints, and go in, and you can still do open heart surgery and work the ER floor. And it just when I worked the 10 years in the hospital, I said there's no standards to check any employees for drug and alcohol, and just kind of frustrates me in a way. So that's my 2 cents in my rant tonight. But yeah, so and then there's a lot of human lives that are always around me from the time I move this truck to the time I park it every day, and that I got to be aware of besides my own health out here. So my safety and others. But anyhow, I appreciate you coming on. We've been at this going on 30 minutes. Anybody got any questions? I think we're going to cut it here, but I appreciate Miss Laura for taking the time to look into this and see that this isn't done for the truck driver side of no overtime on, or no tax on overtime yet. But unless you're like a city worker, factory worker, or something like that, it's a done deal for you guys. But for us, we're still jumping through hoops out here, as always. So,
And
um,
that second tax credit that I was talking about, that $7,500 and that $10,000, that is for a CDLA only, and that is for only a 2-year period of time. So that was the other two things on that.
so you'd have to have, like I have, a class A. A class A would be a tractor trailer
Yes.
combination with air brakes, not a B where it's a straight truck.
Yep.
Okay,
And
and
that was
so
for
you got
two
to be.
years only.
Yeah, and I've told a lot of guys that have gone for the CDLs, just get your A. Don't stop and get your B. I think that's the biggest waste of time because you've limited yourself. And I'm a big proponent of preaching to people is don't ever set limits. Don't set the ceiling height on yourself. The sky's the limit. Go to, you can never keep reaching high enough, but just make sure you're limitless on, especially when it comes to your CDL endorsements, just get everything. And then that way, you've got all the doors open to go in any direction you want. So, yeah. So anyhow, 7,500, and you said that's only for 2 years. So when does that take effect? Is that like right now, or is that delayed like for next year?
I think they looks like they want to do it for 25 and 26, so we'll see if they can get on the ball and get things moving and get it passed. I think they wanted to do it in conjunction with this bill um, that was just passed here, so we'll see what happens.
I would imagine they'd want things to be happening this year because where are we at? We're 6 months into his administration. Usually they want positive things going on the first 2 years because of midterms. So,
Yep.
you can kind of see the map of the road of what they want. They want all the positive stuff to happen now. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on on this stuff, and that congressman out there in California, he's spearheading that, and hopefully he's got a strong following. And you had said earlier, that GOT, the guaranteed overtime for truck drivers, that bill right now is got strong bipartisan support, correct?
It does. And the second one that I discussed with the tax relief, that one is being brought by to do a senator in Iowa and one out of New York. So that one's being brought by two different guys, and that one is also getting strong support. So
And
we'll have
I'm
to see what
surprised with New
happens.
York and California with congressmen and senators, being supportive on that when they usually are always pushing back to help the little guy out here. Um, So anyhow, hopefully, like I said, this goes through, and it's all a win-win for us. We are in the beginning of the third quarter, so I guess all we can do is just see what kind of motivation and things happen through this third quarter, and if anything, if new news comes out, let's do this live stream together like this again and report if it's good, bad, or indifferent when there's more solid news. But that's where it stands right now, folks. Is there's still some moving parts in the no tax on overtime for truck drivers. So there's a couple more things that need to get cleaned up because this industry is paid in so many different ways. It's so wonky, and I just wish they would just make a straight pay on things. But it's
Well, it's
just another
unfortunate that
way for.
they've targeted truck drivers anyway to say that they're not getting overtime. And it's great for the companies that have stepped up and voluntarily given overtime to the ones that they have. So kudos to the companies that have stepped forward and have been giving their employees the overtime.
Right. Yep. And like I said, even in the 80s and 90s, when I got paid by the hour working local jobs, whether it's heavy haul or trash, it was always overtime after 40. That's why back then in my outlaw days, when I was paid by the hour, we worked 80 to 100 hours a week. People are like, you can't do that. Back then we can, and we did, because you didn't get paid for shit on your straight pay. You had to make up for your take home was made up through your overtime. So you would work 40 to 50 hours of overtime every week. It's just the way it was back then. It's not this sissy prissy stuff now where there's GPS tracking on the trucks, tracking with your ELDs, cell phones, and all that. Back then, it was like if you were lucky, you had a two-way radio that hit a tower, or if you were within a 50-mile or less radius, that you could talk to the main office. Otherwise, here's your job duties for the day. Get out there and go. For us, start, racking and stacking, getting your stuff done, get to the landfill when they first open, and make sure you're there before they close. And you just ran hard all day. But, that was then. That's why I'm cut from a different cloth than many drivers out here that have come up since the 2000s to now. So for the last 25 years, they don't know what it was like, as I say, running outlaw, running illegal, running mega hours. And I don't regret it. I'm glad I did it. I'm glad I did a lot of things out here in the trucking industry because it's allowed me to see everything from all different types of views and from a 30,000 foot view too. So thank you for looking that up. Um, you had more time. Today was a driving day. We did the live stream tonight because I stayed home yesterday so we could have a little extra time during the holiday. So I got going at 1 o'clock this morning, and I finished at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So uh, got some stuff done, ate, and her and I already talked a little earlier about stuff. She looked more things up, so I appreciate bringing more to the table. And Silos, thank you for being here. Appreciate you being in the live. Um, you know, uh, anything else you guys got? Leave a comment down below after the live stream if there's any other questions. Miss Laura sees them all the time too, and if there's something entailing of this research, she can look things up and try to get you more of a definitive answer on something more specific. Um, so thank you, Laura. Appreciate it.
No problem.
All right. Until next time, folks, stay safe, continue educating yourself. Knowledge is learned, not taught. And always, when you got information like this, go out and look at both sides of it. Don't just take it for face value. And that way, when you know, you know. So until next time, folks.